Good morning, committee. Bring the meeting to order. We got a lot to do today. I think it is. Is my mic on? Hello? That better? Okay. Good morning. Good morning, committee. Thank you for being here, staff. Thank you for being here, conferees. Thank you also for being here. We've got a lot to do today, so we need to get moving. We've got plenty of proponents here. So we're going to open the hearing on House Bill 2236, and Carly will give us an explanation of that bill. Thank you, Carly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, committee. House Bill 2236 would codify the Mental Health Intervention Team program administered by the Kansas Department for Aging and Disability Services in state statute. The Mental Health Intervention Team program has been operated through a budget proviso under the State Department of Education since 2018. House Bill 2236 would establish the Mental Health Intervention Team Program Act into statute under the Kansas Department for Aging and Disability Services, or KDADS. Section 1 of the bill would provide definitions for relevant terms used in this act. Those terms include department, school district, mental health intervention team provider. KDADS would be authorized to approve another category of provider other than those defined as mental health intervention team provider. Section 2 lists formally establishes the program and provides the purposes of this program, including providing greater access to behavioral health services for students and for team providers to optimize resources and workforce, identifying students, communicate with families, and link students and their families to behavioral health systems and resources, alleviating the shortage of staff with specialized degrees or training, reduce competition for staff, and provide broad-based services to students, providing and coordinating mental health services throughout the calendar year, and reducing barriers to access in mental health services and maintain consistency for students. Additionally, Section 2 would specify that the program would focus on students who have been adjudicated as a child in need of care and in the custody of the Secretary for Children and Families, or have been referred for a Families First program or family preservation program, and any other student in need of mental health support services. Section 3 authorizes school districts to apply each year to KDADS to establish or maintain a mental health intervention team program. The application would be submitted on a form and in a manner as determined by KDADS. Each application would specify the provider the school intends to work with. After approval, the school district and the mental health intervention team provider would enter into a memorandum of understanding, which would then be submitted to KDADS for final approval. Additionally, Section 3 provides that, subject to appropriations, school districts with a mental health intervention team program may receive a mental health intervention team program grant and a mental health team provider pass-through grant. The amount of the grant would be determined by calculating the total amount of salary and fringe benefits paid by the school district to each school liaison. The amount of the pass-through grant would be 35% of the amount of the mental health intervention team grant. If the appropriation is insufficient to cover the cost of the grants, the amount school districts are entitled to receive would be prorated. Section 3 also requires KDADS to prepare and submit a report on this program for the preceding school year to several legislative committees, which are listed in subsection G. Section 4 would provide that the mental health intervention team program include a combination of one or more behavioral health liaisons employed by the school district and one or more case managers and licensed therapists employed by the partnering mental health intervention team provider. Section 4 also lists the roles and responsibilities of a behavioral health liaison, a therapist, and a case manager. Section 5 would require school districts to establish a mental health intervention team program fund where all monies received by the school district for this program or for the grant or the pass-through grant shall be credited. Section 6 establishes a qualified a qualified school mental health team board with members appointed by the Secretary of KDADS. The board shall establish a qualified school mental health intervention team program, create a plan for the allocation of monies to qualified schools, and review the criteria for school district funding as provided in Section 3. Any school seeking funding for mental health intervention team programs shall submit a proposal of funding to the board. The board would oversee the implementation of the qualified schools mental health intervention teams and provide resources, training, and support, including access to professional development and networking opportunities. The board would be required to prepare and submit a report summarizing the mental health intervention team program to several legislative committees listed in subsection F. House Bill 2236 would take effect on July 1st, 2025, upon publication in the statute book.
Wow, Carly, great job. That's a big. Committee questions of Carly. Representative Bueller.
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Chair. How different is this from House Bill 2669 that we passed last year? Because until you got to the last section, it seems almost verbatim.
Mr. Chair, Representative, off the top of my head, I believe Section 6 is the only difference.
Okay, thank you. That's exactly what it looks like. Thank you so much, Carly.
Committee, further questions? Seeing none, thank you very much, Carly. We're going to move it along pretty quickly. We're going to give Taylor a little bit of time to explain this with Department of Aging, and then after that, everybody's going to have 3 minutes, and Elizabeth will have a little card there to show you when you're getting close to 30 seconds. So with that, Taylor, welcome to committee.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Taylor Bremer. I'm the Assistant Behavioral Health Commissioner for the Kansas Department of Aging and Disability Services. I'm here today to provide proponent testimony regarding House Bill 2236, establishing the Mental Health Intervention Team Program into state statute. I just want to remind the committee that KDADS has provided this testimony for you all to review, as well as the follow-up answers to questions posed last week during the MHIT presentation. This bill before you guys today contains the same language as the 2025 fiscal year budget proviso that was passed that transferred the program and budget oversight to KDADS from the Kansas State Department of Education. Additionally, it allowed qualified schools to become part of the MHIT program. KDADS is requesting MHIT to be established into state statute, as we believe, if enacted, it would provide stability and ensure the continued growth of a program that has delivered essential services to Kansas youth and their families. In 2018, MHIT was created through a budget proviso as legislators saw the important need to address the mental health youth crisis that Kansas was facing. This program provided vital services to Kansas youth that were where they were at in the schools. Last week, Commissioner Adkins did a presentation on MHIT, and I did want to reiterate some of these numbers for you all today. In 2018, MHIT had 9 schools participating in this program. Today, there are over 130 schools. 108 of them are public, and 23 are qualified schools. MHIT also employs over 240 school-based liaisons throughout Kansas. Since 2018, 15,000 students have received comprehensive behavioral health services in a school-based setting. In the school year 2023-2024, 7,000 students received services, with 600 of them being identified as foster care youth. These are just some of the quick statistics that we can provide for you all based off of this program and shows how vital it is. With your support, this program will continue to see lasting impacts for our youth for years to come. We've been incredibly appreciative of the legislators' support on MHIT over the years and hope to continue to see this support. I want to thank you all for allowing me to provide testimony on behalf of KDADS, and I'm happy to stand for any questions when appropriate.
Very good. Thank you. Committee questions? Representative Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Say, in terms of the growth, as you'd mentioned, from 18 until current day, with $18.5 million, you talked about it being in 9 schools, and now it's in 130. How far are we in saturation? I mean, are we halfway, three-fourths? In terms of the total population, I guess, in growth.
Okay. So are you, thank you for the question, Representative Turner. I just want to make sure that I'm understanding it correctly. MHIT serves 108 public schools out of 286 USDs. Was that your question?
Yes, so
Okay.
we're less, 200 how many?
286.
So we're less than halfway. Okay, all right.
Committee, further questions? Seeing none? Thank you.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for being here. Okay, next we have Michelle Bonds. Michelle, welcome to committee. 3 minutes.
Thank you. Chair Carpenter, members of the committee, my name is Michelle Ponce. I'm the Associate Director for the Association of Community Mental Health Centers of Kansas. We represent all 26 licensed community mental health centers across the state of Kansas. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in support of House Bill 2236. The success of the Mental Health Intervention Team program is really predicated on allowing schools to focus on education and their partnering mental health providers to focus on treatment and improving care, including the ability to provide crisis services 24/7, even on weekends and during the summer break. The key staff of the MHIT program include a combination of behavioral health liaisons employed by the school and clinical therapists and case managers employed by the partnering mental health providers. Those school liaisons identify students who may be in need of mental health services or supports, and they make those referrals to the mental health providers. Therapists conduct assessments and establish treatment plans. They conduct therapy and provide crisis services. Case managers work closely with those therapists to implement the treatment plans, coordinate health and medical services, and work directly with students to provide a variety of psychosocial topics, including strategies for anger management and anxiety management and appropriate social behaviors. Because these services are provided in schools, students miss less class time because they don't have to leave to attend to appointments. The school-based team is also able to coordinate to ensure students don't miss important classwork or core classes. On page 2 of my written testimony, you can see the steady growth of the program since 2018. In the current school year, there are nearly 100 districts participating in partnership with 23 of our 26 community mental health centers. So far this year, they've already provided services to over 6,500 students. The last thing I want to highlight in my testimony are the outcomes. Since the outset of this program, schools have been required to submit data on a list of outcome measures, including improved attendance, improved academic performance, and improved behaviors. All of these measures have stayed fairly consistent, around 70% or higher over the years. Specifically, in the first half of this school year, over 75% of students served had improved attendance, 70% demonstrated improved externalizing behaviors, 70% achieved increased academic performance, so their grades went up, and 68% had improved internalized behaviors. Beyond these numbers, we frequently hear stories from our participating mental health centers that are simultaneously heartbreaking and inspiring, and you'll hear some of those from other conferees, but they are literally saving lives in this program. House Bill 2236 will provide permanency to this program that thus far has been funded on a year-by-year basis. That permanency will allow for sustainability and long-term planning, which will allow for us to recruit and retain the staff necessary for the program. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today, and I'll be happy to answer questions at the appropriate time.
Committee, a few brief questions. Seeing none? Oh, Representative Berquist.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just one question about the 24-hour care, and I remember a 24-hour follow-up. I remember talking about that in the past, and wanted to know what the success has been, and what does that look like? Has it actually been engaged 24 hours a day?
Yes, thank you for the question, Chair and Representative Berquist. All community mental health centers provide services 24/7, 7 days a week. They're required to do so. And so that's the unique partnership when they're partnering with mental health centers. We have some situations in which the schools make the school building open to them, even during holidays and summers. In other cases, when school's out, they might be seeing them in the community mental health center, Or in some cases, all of the mental health centers across the state also provide mobile crisis response teams that are able to outreach to youth or even adults who are experiencing a crisis. So I don't have data in front of me right this moment, but yes, they are providing crisis services outside of school hours.
Very good. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Committee, further questions? Seeing none, thank you very much, Michelle. Next, we have Randy Kallstrom. Randy, welcome to committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Randy Kallstrom. I'm the president and CEO of Wyandotte Behavioral Health Network in Wyandotte County. We were one of the original sites for the MHIT program, working with the Kansas City, Kansas School District. Since then, the Bonner School District also has joined, and today we're serving 14 schools. One of the key aspects is the formalization of partnership between the school staff and the mental health staff. Prior to being accepted to participate in the MHIT program and working with the mental health center, Bonner Springs schools would call the police when a student made statements about suicide or threatening to harm themselves. Today, we are there in the school to respond in real time and work with the family and the youth to access the level of care that they need. One notable item for the MHIT program is that it provides additional options for foster care children and their families to engage in services at a higher level of care. MHIT programming offers additional intake and service options by providing those services in the school. And if foster care children move within the school district, they maintain continuity of care with their treatment providers as well as their school staff. Having a dedicated therapist and social worker from the school work together as teams creates multiple real-life resourcing opportunities for children who are unsure of safe contacts within their environment. It is common that social workers and therapists work together to address crisis and support to a client. In addition to the services provided, our partnership built through the MHIT program has created a direct connection between our crisis services, as we've been able to establish more efficient and effective crisis response, problem solving, and opportunities to bridge the gap between our families and the life-saving mental health services. Within our MOU, we also have consistency in providers, which speeds up the process of referral, communication, consultation, and most importantly, getting children intaked into services. And it reduces the barriers such as transportation and allowing clinicians to join the world of their clients to further enhance interventions and provide more in-the-moment interventions to teach skills and process school-based traumas. Last school year, we served 344 students in the KCK and Bonner Springs schools, and as Michelle indicated, many of them saw increases in attendance, improvement in depression, anxiety, and thoughts of suicide, as well as acting out behaviors. I worked in Wyandotte County, partnered with the schools prior to the MHIT program, but I also remember when funding cuts led to half of the school social workers being laid off. And I saw the impact that had on students. I urge you to support a permanent and sustainable funding mechanism for the MHIT program, and I'll stand for questions at the appropriate time. Thank you for your time.
Very good. Thank you, Randy. Committee questions? Representative Bryce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Randy. Just curious, the 334 students you served last year, I'm just curious how they were referred. Were they self-referred, teacher-referred? How did you initially interact with them? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, Representative Bryce. So the typical way that happens is that the school social worker helps identify students who are struggling behaviorally or with their attendance. They'll consult with our therapist that is in the school. They'll coordinate a time to do that intake or that initial assessment of the student, as well as a very important piece of it, they work together to engage the family, because the family or the legal guardian must give consent for that medical treatment. So having the school and the therapist work together has been really instrumental.
Committee, further questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for being here. Next, we have Kathy Moser. Kathy, welcome to committee.
Thank you, Chairman Carpenter. My name's Kathy Mosier. I'm a licensed clinical psychotherapist. I'm also the CEO of Family Service and Guidance Center, FSGC, here in Topeka. We are a community mental health center specializing in youth and families for over 50 years. We provide mental health services to all Kansans who need them, regardless of their ability to pay. We, too, are one of the original 6 CMHCs, and in 2024, we were operational in 22 schools in Shawnee County. We served 650 enrolled students in the MHIT program. 81% of those youth improved their school attendance. 75% improved their external behaviors. External behaviors are like acting out, aggressive, outwardly behaviors. 82% showed improved internal behaviors, reducing depression, anxiety. This catches the kids who are falling through the cracks that weren't making it through our doors as a community mental health center. 75% showed improvement in their academic success, looking at their grades. We also assisted students by providing that 24/7 care, which we do as CMHCs. It's an added benefit of the MHIT program. It doesn't cost the MHIT program, but because we are who we are as a community mental health center offering 24/7, that we are there on site to provide mobile crisis interventions to the students. We provided 264 of those. We also have added benefits as our partnerships have grown over time. FSGC provides an array of comprehensive services, including we provide training, trauma training, things like that, for the teachers, for the personnel at the schools, social emotional skill building groups for youth who need the skills to manage their and to emotionally manage. 24/7 crisis interventions, these things are all things that remove the access barriers so that kids can be successful in their learning environment and actually focus on learning. MHIT staff are now trained in determining presumptive eligibility in our district. And part of that has been we hooked 83 kids up with health care that did not have any coverage in the past, just by noticing that they were eligible. It is important that this committee vote to move to the program from a year-to-year proviso to a permanent program. This would allow for more stabilization within the workforce, more opportunity for growth and expansion, and better integration of programs to best serve the youth and families of Shawnee County. Thank you, and I'll stand for questions.
Committee, any questions? Representative Bueller.
So, and as I'm going through who the proponents are today, when we've heard this bill in the past, I'm curious as to the impact on, if you know, in the schools that you are associated with. Have you seen any impact on I'm going to call it the school counseling staff? So, for example, in one of my districts, 2 years ago, the inability for the district to staff all of those counseling positions was a question. Do you have any experience that this has alleviated any of those pressures in the schools that you work with?
You know, there's plenty to do, and there are plenty of kids to reach. What this really does, and these are kind of two different areas of expertise, the school counselors versus the clinical counselors. They're going to identify, they're going to hook them up with resources, they can do some brief intervention, but when there is a mental illness at play and it's going to take an evidence-based proven practice of series of treatment to have the biggest impact, they're not able to get to all the kids to do that. So we work hand in hand with them to refer to each other for the different possibilities. So I'm not sure that that alleviates the need for school personnel at all, but together it's much more powerful and gets better outcomes.
And I may have, that's not really what I was after, is that they were trying to alleviate any of that stuff. I guess you answered in terms of the way they work together. But I just recall a very distressed group of people who had behavioral they had a variety of responsibilities in my home school district. my home school district does not use the MHIT program, even though they know about it. So I was just curious if there was any anecdotal information that could help there.
If you are referring to the fact that by our working with the youth and the students, that has alleviated the school counselors to do more of what they need to do and has taken a lot of the problems out of causing more problems among all the other kids in
That's
the
kind
classroom.
of where I was going.
Yeah, and I do have 2 quotes from school personnel in particular, if that might help.
That would help.
Okay, so this is since the start of the MHIT program at Topeka High, and this is the schools reporting to us in their annual report. The benefit of the program cannot be denied. Its steady growth, its consistent engagement, and it has benefited the students with a safe place to land, process their emotions, and build critical skills to not only survive, but now to thrive. The trust built spans more than the therapeutic and the clinical relationships, but into the school staff as well. The consistency of MHIT at Topeka High has created a culture that the students and families and staff can depend on.
That's perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any further questions? Seeing none, thank you, Kathy, for being here. Chantel, welcome to committee.
All right. Good afternoon. My name is Chantel Westbrook. I'm the Clinical and Rehab Director at ComCare of Sedgwick County. We have a 65-year history of providing mental health services to really quite a vulnerable population. We also offer a large array of crisis services like you've heard here today also. And myself, I've had the privilege of being part of this program since the beginning in 2018. So I've kind of watched it grow and change and being part of those original partners in this. So we currently we have 5 districts that we partner with, and that's 52 schools within those 5 districts. I think one thing noteworthy is we were 3 districts in, and then a year and a half ago, we added 2 additional districts. One of those has had so much success and has reported such a positive that they've added their 2 middle schools to also be part of that program. So I've really appreciated that I think the evidence has definitely been there that it's made a difference. So we have served, so this year to date, we've served over 900 students, and we're well on track to serve over 1,000 before the end of the school year. Many, as you've already heard, are in foster care. And our goal is really to make it easier to get services. If not provided in the school setting, many would not be able to get to the services or obtain or be able to get all the pieces into place to make services happen. And so breaking down barriers to care has been a real benefit to this. Also, that partnership, I've heard crisis services being brought up, and crisis services are available to anyone, of course, but being connected with the school system, it gets the information out there more. They're more readily able to receive and accept those type of services. We know that our program has made a difference. We have the numbers that you've heard as far as the success and things. I'll just very quickly, across our 5 districts, we've had 82% showing improved attendance, indicating increased engagement, 75% having reduced externalized behaviors. And we know that's important because sometimes underneath those behaviors are a lot of problems that if we can talk through them, those behaviors can hopefully come down. 80% have had increased academic performance, meaning grades have improved. Thank you, and I will take any questions when appropriate.
Committee, any brief questions? Seeing none, thank you very
Okay,
much for
thank
being
you.
here, Chantel. Next, we have Craig Coe. Craig? Virtual. Craig, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
We can. Welcome to committee.
Thank you, Chairman Carpenter and members of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity to speak today in support of House Bill 2236. I'm Craig Poe, High Plains Mental Health Center, serving all of Northwest Kansas. As you've heard with many of my colleagues that have just spoke, we've had the same enormous impact from the MHIT program since it was implemented. The Mental Health Intervention Team program has been one of the most impactful innovations we've seen in youth mental health care. By placing mental health providers directly in the schools, we've removed the barriers that have historically kept them from getting the help they need. Not just transportation issues, but the reality is many working parents simply don't have time or flexibility to take their child to another appointment outside of school or after school. With the MHIT model, we've seen firsthand how early intervention changes and often saves lives. The stories in my written testimony aren't just feel-good stories, they are outcomes that set the course for the rest of these children's lives. When kids stay in school, stay connected, and receive support, they're far more likely to succeed, not only academically, but in their long-term health and well-being. And our data backs this up. Among all the schools we have in MHIT services across Northwest Kansas, we've seen just one dropout. The MHIT model has opened new ways to engage with families in care. In one case, we had a father join the therapy session from his tractor. The mother participated on her lunch break from her vehicle in the parking lot, and the child attended from school. This individual group would not have benefited without the addition of family therapy. That's really what they needed. And it was made possible through the connections and the embedded services that we have with the MHIT model. But the success of this program is at risk if we continue funding it year to year, as many have stated. Without permanent, reliable funding, it's difficult to plan for growth, hire staff, especially out here in rural Kansas, or build partnerships with new schools. And yet the demand continues to grow. We're actively working with school districts to further expand even when the funding isn't available. We've had some success with some grants, but they are temporary funding, similar to what this bill has been. Currently, 12 of our school districts are MHIT funded. We have 29 other districts that we work with through temporary funding and continue to hope that we can solidify that as we move forward. But certainly a lot of room for expansion on our end if we were to find permanent ground for this. Every single dollar invested in MHIT doesn't just fund services, it creates better outcomes, stronger families, and healthier communities. As you've seen, this program works. We know it works, and our students deserve the certainty that the services will be there for them from next year and every year after that. So Kansas has made tremendous progress by launching this MHIT program, but now I see is the time to solidify that investment. Make this life-changing program a permanent part of our state's commitment to youth mental health. On behalf of the students, families, and communities we serve, I respectfully urge the committee to support House Bill 2236 and help secure a brighter future for Kansas youth. I'll stand for questions at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Very, very good, Mr. Craig. Thank you for that. Committee questions of Craig. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Chuck Weber. Chuck, welcome to committee.
Thank you, Chair Carpenter and members of the committee. Appreciate the time to testify in favor of 2236. A few of you know I was back in the legislature when this first got started. Mental health was a big push of mine personally. Served on the Social Services Budget Committee, so Representative, you got a big job there. So I appreciate what you're doing there, and also just everyone that's working in that area. Just there's other. I represent the Catholic Bishops of Kansas, and we have some Catholic school folks here today, and so I'm going to let them speak about how the program is working for them. But I want to point out just a couple of things that, first of all, that our programs with the MHIT are directed to high-risk students. So when I say high risk, that's defined by the Kansas State Department of Education. There's like a whole long list of what defines or qualifies as a high risk, but we push our dollars and our services to those kids primarily and to the rural schools that don't always have the access in the larger communities to mental health services. So, and then finally, these are in-person services that we really feel, and I think you're going to hear that. And also, last week, you got this packet from us. Everybody on this committee should have got it, everybody on the committee, but a great number of letters from parents, administrators, even children who benefit from the MHIT program. And so we appreciate the state of Kansas including qualified schools, that would be non-public schools. And I'm happy to answer questions. I don't know a whole lot about specifics of the program, but if you have questions that I can answer, I'm certainly here to answer them.
Very good. Thank you, Chuck. Committee. Representative McDonald.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Mr. Weber, I really appreciate you being here, and I also appreciate the packet that you gave us earlier. It really did help me to wrap my head around the MHIT program with Catholic schools. But I did have a question for you. I'm most familiar with public schools, and you know, in public schools, we all have counselors and social workers and that sort of thing. With your Catholic schools, are MHIT services supplementary to school counseling services? Are they in lieu? Is it a combination?
Well, I think that's a question that my administrators can better answer.
Okay.
I think I have an idea, Representative, but I don't want to speak without knowing the answer to that for sure. So.
Okay, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
Representative Ruiz.
I was, in your testimony, there's here, a couple of times you said, our administrators screen counselors working with our children, and services are being conducted in person. What does that look like, the screening of the counselors?
Yeah, again, Representative Reese, I don't want to dodge you. I'm happy to, I just don't know that. I'm not on the ground on that. I think there are some other folks here that can better answer that question. So
thank you.
I think you want a good answer. I can't give you one.
Committee, further questions? Representative Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In your testimony, you mentioned that the services are available to any student, but they're focused on high-risk student populations. What does that mean? I mean, how do the
right? Yeah. So
do the incidents occur more regularly, or you get the first group of students out the door quicker to get the other?
So I think Dr. Finkeldye, who's going to testify after me, Representative Turner, can answer that a little better. But the program itself is not means tested. You know, you don't. According to the statute, or well, the proviso right now, you know, you don't have to make a certain amount or not make a certain amount. So that's really where I'm going at with that. So it's for any child. But I just want to say, despite that, we direct our dollars and our resources towards those high-risk students. And when I say high risk, that's that long list that the KSDE has, and I don't have that in front of me actually, but there's a long list of what qualifies a student as quote-unquote high risk. I mean, income is part of that, but that's only one thing.
Yeah, that was kind of the nature of my question, is how you identified those. But okay,
yeah.
We'll talk to the others. Thank you.
Yep.
Committee, further questions? Seeing none, Chuck,
thank you
very much for being here. Next, we have Heather Snap. Heather? Welcome to committee.
Thank you. Mr. Chair Carpenter and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Heather Snap, and I'm a licensed specialist clinical social worker and the regional supervisor for Children's First. We partner to provide mental health professionals in 15 non-public schools in central and eastern Kansas for the Catholic Diocese. So as you've seen from our impact statement, there's a critical need for MHIT funding. That funding allows Children's First and my staff to provide mental health services across Kansas in schools that have no other layers of mental health professionals. This funding ensures that the support is available within the schools, addressing crises and providing ongoing care, along with removing all the barriers that brings to our families. We've already witnessed the profound impact that our mental health team has had. As you can see from the testimony that was provided by a parent in Southeast Kansas, there's a 6th grader, so he was already struggling with severe ADHD and emotional regulation. Over the winter break, there was a tragic accident and his brother died. His brother was 17 years old and a junior in high school. So the 6th grader was unable to make it through the school day without having multiple breakdowns, and he was experiencing tremendous grief. And the only person that he was able to connect with in the school was our mental health intervention staff. That's a professional that we were able to employ with the MHIT funding. And so I spoke to our staff last night, and I was just checking in with this precious 6th grader, and she said he's still struggling with incredible grief, but by working with those two working together, they've found different strategies to help him cope, and he's able to come in for brief check-ins throughout the day and able to focus on his studies. So along with supporting this young man, our mental health liaison and mental health professionals were able to find grief support for this family and immediately help the family get wraparound support services. So this support, or this family's experience, encapsulates the immediate and critical support that mental health professionals provide in schools. In times of crisis, having a trusted professional on site can make all the difference in helping children coping with their trauma, managing grief, and maintaining their ability to function during their school days. Thank you so much for your time, and I'm happy to ask any questions or answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather, for being here. Committee, quick questions? Representative Bueller.
Just a comment, and because you provide services to both parochial and public schools, do you change your services?
Our agency, thank you for the question, our agency, Children's First, provides services in non-public schools.
Okay, I thought I saw both. I'm going back to your testimony, so I may have screwed that up. That's entirely possible. Okay, that is my mistake. So thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll try to get somebody else. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Rees.
I don't see this in your testimony, but what type of treatment modality is being used?
Thank you for the question. Honestly, it depends on the kid. We're doing a lot of behavioral interventions as far as strength-based, evidence-based, depending on if they have anxiety, working different models, depending on the kid.
Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
Next, we have Jamie. Welcome to committee.
Thank you, Chair Carpenter and the committee. I'm Jamie Figelai. I'm the Associate Superintendent for the Catholic Diocese of Wichita. And Heather and Children's First works with 16 of our schools, and it has made just an incredible impact on our schools. So to answer some of the questions I think that came around, what Chuck was referring to is we have 38 schools, but we have Children's First in our 16 low-income and rural schools. So our first layer is that we're assigning them to schools that are primarily at least over 40% free and reduced lunch student population. And then within those schools, some of the kids can still afford private counseling. So Representative Turner, you're asking about screening. Obviously, if the council has time, they'll see everyone. But if we have to prioritize between those that have insurance and private counseling and those that do not, we obviously prioritize those that need the counseling. As many of the other conferees have said, the ability to have the services in the building is just amazing, life-changing. So many times before, and to answer Representative McDonald's question, most of our schools have no school counselors. Well, these 16 schools, or 15 schools, none of them had a school counselor. So it wasn't like we were adding services on top. It was either private or nothing. And MHIT has allowed us to have the services in the building for families who would otherwise not be able to necessarily get their kids to counseling, and it's just been life-changing. So just want to reiterate what everyone else has said, is that this program has been great for our schools. It's been changing, life-changing, and we want to make sure that it's continued. I'll stand for any other questions.
Very good. Thank you, Jamie. Representative Ruiz.
Thank you for your testimony. Are you one of the administrators that screens the counselors?
Well, we work with Children's First. They hire the counselors. So I think when they're referring to screening, I believe they're just referring to screening the students. Again, what I was saying to Representative Turner, of whether they have their own private insurance and counselor if they need to go there.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any further questions? Representative Turner.
Thank you. Do the kids make up their class time for the time that they're taken out for counseling?
It depends. Generally, if it's a student in a crisis situation, obviously they come out of class. We wouldn't have them make up that time. Once they get into the program and they're seen on a regular basis by the counselor, generally we try to schedule them in a time in which they're not, missing math or reading, maybe during a special time or whatever. So they would miss minimal core instruction.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I usually try to write down my questions before I say them, but I didn't really have time, so I hope I can say this articulately. I really take a pretty strong stance about public dollars going to public schools, and I struggled a little bit with this bill last year because I feel like this is an exception to that rule. In the end, I decided I was a big proponent of this because I think all Kansas school children should have counseling. So I want to say that first and foremost, whether they're served in the school or outside of the school. It does trouble me a little bit that perhaps some Catholic schools or other private schools might not prioritize something so important as mental health because the budget's a reflection of our priorities. So it does give me a little bit of pause that we're supplementing private school budgets to provide something instead of being, in conjunction with what you're already doing to provide mental health. It seems like it's in place of what wasn't happening. So I just would encourage you to maybe consider that a little bit when you're looking at your budgets. But I am a big supporter of this, and I appreciate the activism and advocacy you've had to make sure we understand how this fits into your model. Thank you.
Yeah, I would say that Leah's here, and we're not always on the same side. Leah and I enjoy that this is one of the topics we're on the same side on, and can really both agree that this is such a great program. And I would say, you're right, this allows it in the building. Prior to this, we did, I wouldn't say not prioritize the mental health, but it was a talk to them and get them connected to outside counselors, and they had to leave the building during the day, and that messed up core instruction. And so this is a much better system. So I appreciate your support.
Representative Steens.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much for your presentation or your testimony today. I just wanted to make a statement. I agree we should have this available to all of our children, and I've had kids in both public and private schools, and we're all taxpayers. So I would say, if our kids need the help, I think it's great that we're providing the MHIT for all of our kids. And I never thought about it, but COVID definitely, I have seen such a change, even in my own children who are middle school and high school age. And there's a lot of anxiety out there and things that the kids, and cell phones and all the things that they're exposed to in social media, the things that, my generation didn't have to so much deal with. So thank you so much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Committee, further questions? Representative Myers.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that. I I'm not entirely sure if you're the correct person to ask, but since you're part of the Catholic Diocese, I figured this might be a good way, you might be a good person to ask. So in the case of students who may identify as part of the LGBTQ community and require therapeutic intervention in the school setting, does the Catholic Diocese have any particular stance on that? And if so, how would that look in a therapeutic setting, and how would those needs be addressed?
Again, probably not the best person, since I'm not a counselor, but I would say generally our position is to work closely with the family on this. So if that came to a counselor, they would involve the family and try to work for the best needs. And if that ended up going outside of the school for counseling, that is a possibility. We don't do all of our counseling in the school. So if necessary, they could have counseling outside the building as well.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for being here again. So kind of to follow up on that, in light of previous bills we've heard this session and in deliberation of how state funding would work, how would that affect a child who may be in your private school system who utilizes different pronouns or may identify as transgender? Would they still be able to access those same services, and would the mental health providers within your school setting be able to address them as their preferred?
Let me break in here.
pronoun?
Let's keep it about the bill.
Oh, I'm sorry. I am trying to do so, but
Well, you're having a hard time wrapping it up, but try to stay on target of MHIT. So can you get to the point?
yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
So I guess my question here is, how would that be addressed in that setting, considering the previous legislation that we've passed and looking at this bill?
Yes, I'm not positive of the previous legislation you're speaking of. Again, our policy in our diocese, working with the LGBT community, is that is dealt with on a case-by-case basis. We don't have a policy one way or the other. It's a case-by-case basis in conjunction with the family and what is best for that family, and how our school can best serve them, or if we can't serve them going on. But there is no set policy in our diocese. It's a case-by-case basis.
Thank you.
Very good. Committee, further questions? Seeing none, thank you. Thank you for being here. Next, we have John Hamilton. Welcome to committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, committee, for allowing me to speak. John Hamilton, and I am the school counselor at Sacred Heart Junior Senior High School in Salina, Kansas. And I know you have my testimony in front of you, so I just want to add to that. In general, I support my 191 students through academic challenges, social pressures, and the stressors of college and career readiness, and the expectation to have it all figured out. On a specific note, our partnership with MHIT has gotten mental health treatment for 2 students that have recently lost a parent, several students that are trying to process the sexual abuse that they suffered at the hands of a parent, children that have the urges to self-harm, children that have the urges to end their lives. I just want to say that trauma does not discriminate between public school and private school students. Several families have reached out to me to ask about this program, and they did not emphasize their problems. They emphasized the fact that they felt safe to do so. And then you add social media to the mix, and I think the negative impacts of that have been well documented. And adding that to students and what they are dealing with just creates a greater emphasis on the impact of needing social and emotional support and well-being. Part of my job is also to be a testing administrator, and a lot of my time at school is reduced to being a scheduler, where I have to add classes, drop classes, make sure kids are where they need to be in what math class. And we need strong partnerships like we have with MHIT to ensure that the social and emotional well-being of students are being met. Another statistic that we like to tote at Sacred Heart is that 95% of our students are engaged in extracurricular activities. It looks great on an accreditation report, and it speaks very highly of the engagement that we have. But what that does is that makes families incredibly busy. All of these things are after school. It's really hard to find a regular frequency for mental health treatment. The MHIT program brings these therapists to our school and gives them that personal touch and that regular frequency that they have to have treatment. Because mental health is not a short game, it's a long game. Finally, HB 2236 doesn't just ensure critical mental health treatment for our students, but it is the start in the fight to destigmatizing mental health treatment in the state of Kansas as a whole. Thank you, and I stand for questions.
Committee, questions? Representative McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I really do appreciate you being here, and I'm glad to hear your perspective. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about how having access to MHIT therapists has it enabled you to go deeper with some kids or serve more kids, and how is the interaction between you and these liaisons?
So thank you for your question, Representative McDonald. Sometimes it is difficult in everything that we do for our students to really get into those underlying causes of what is that trauma, what's causing them to have these issues that they have and these problems. And what having a licensed professional therapist on site does is that gives them that pinpointed time, that personal touch, to be able to open up and to, in a safe environment, to have the students kind of dig deeper and to work with them. And then we have a open communication with them to where we can then learn these insights as well. And we can find out what's working in therapy, and then we can duplicate that, share it with our teachers, and make sure that we have a more cohesive team approach to that treatment for that student. Thank you.
Any further questions? Representative Bueller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm curious about what the catalyst was for your school to get involved with the MHIT program. And again, I'll back up. There's 2 primary public school districts in my district, only one of which has chosen to get involved with the MHIT program, and I've spoken to both superintendents. What was the catalyst for your schools to be involved in MHIT, and how long have you been doing that? Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Bueller, for your question. I believe that would be a question that would be better answered by our superintendent, Jeff Andrews, who is here and was kind of in the groundwork of the foundation of that partnership.
Any further questions? Representative Weichel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for being here today. And since you work with older students, grades 7 through 12, I'm just sitting here wondering, what happens if you identify a student who you think needs some mental health help, but the family isn't willing to give permission or to go along with that? What are your next steps then?
So a creed for anyone in the helping profession is not to treat beyond your abilities. And so I'm very careful with that. If I identify a student that I believe can benefit from this service, then I reach out to the family. I make them aware of the program. I do tell them what I have observed and my concerns, and then I lean on that partnership, and I trust that families make the best decision for their children. They know them better than I do, and so I do communicate with them, and I do urge them and communicate with them my concerns, but I ultimately support what they decide for their child.
Thank you very much, John.
Thank you.
Next, we have Zoe Greenmeyer. Zoe, welcome to committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Zoe Greenmeyer, and I'm the school counselor at St. Mary's Grade School in Salina, Kansas, and I'm here to express my strong support for HB 2236. I've witnessed firsthand the positive impact that school-based mental health services have on our students and their families. St. Mary's serves 279 students. We currently have 9 that are benefiting from the MHIT grant, with 20 students on a waiting list. As a school counselor, I typically work with around 10 students individually while also teaching classroom lessons and providing small group support. This program helps provide some additional support, which is vital for meeting the growing mental health needs of our students. This year, we have seen an increase in students who have experienced significant trauma, including the death of a parent or witnessing a murder. The in-person therapy services are essential in helping these students process their emotions, cope with their experiences, and begin to heal. While this level of trauma is not typical, we also continue to support our students struggling with anxiety, depression, behavioral challenges, and family stress. For many of our students, school is a safe space, providing both stability and emotional support during difficult times. This program allows families, especially working families, access to mental health services without the need to take time off work or disrupt their schedules. This flexibility is crucial for our parents who are juggling multiple responsibilities. The mental health services provided through this program also come to no cost for our families, ensuring that all students, regardless of financial circumstances, can access the support they need. This program allows students to receive in-person professional support during the school day, reducing the wait time for appointments and minimizing disruptions to their education. Immediate access to therapy can make a critical difference in a student's emotional well-being and academic success. Through this bill, we're able to facilitate coordination of care between our therapists, school staff, and families, ensuring that all professionals involved in the student's well-being are working together toward a common goal. Our therapists provide valuable insights and guidance to the school staff, equipping us with the knowledge and tools necessary to best support our students. This collaborative approach ensures that we can address both the academic and the emotional needs of our students effectively. While our teachers and staff care really deeply about our students, most are not trained mental health professionals, and so this bill provides specialized support that teachers and staff can't offer on their own. So I want to thank you for your time and commitment to the well-being of Kansas children, and I'm open to any questions.
Very good. Thank you. So, committee, a few brief questions. Seeing none. Very good. Thank you very much for being here. Next, we have Jennifer. Welcome to committee.
Thank you. Thank you for having me this afternoon. My name is Jennifer K. Higgins, and I am the parent of a almost 12-year-old girl who attends St. Mary's, and so she currently is with Mrs. Greenmeyer, and then we're on the cusp of heading towards Sacred Heart, where she will have Mr. Hamilton. So today I stand before you not only as a public educator of 25 years, but for my daughter. So mornings of tears and panic due to her anxiety can be heartbreaking. I, as her mother, know that she's clever and capable and talented and articulate, but that some days her anxiety is crippling. These mornings have decreased, though, thanks to being able to see an on-site therapist in her school building. I don't have to worry about scheduling. It's taken care of at school. She knows ahead of time when she's going to see the counselor, and it's been a great relief to her, as it is to my husband and I. Having this personal face-to-face meeting with someone that cares about her and she's connected with means the world to us. It really, truly has made a difference. Yesterday morning, I got the chance to take my daughter to school, which doesn't happen very often because I go to work almost an hour earlier than she goes to school. I was already prepared for that moment when she looked at me and says, "Do I have to go to school, Mama?" But yesterday morning, she pulled all her stuff together and was out of the car, and I didn't even get to kiss her goodbye because she was so ready to run into school to see her friends. In the past, there would have been tears and begging me not to make her go into school. So In that moment, my mama heart was so happy. And I felt like at this moment, she really could focus on who she is, her academics, the social part of school. It just helps her be who she is without the anxiety hanging over her head. I want this for all kids. To watch her be able to manage her anxiety it just means the world to my husband and I. It's important that I urge you to support this bill and fund it so that all Kansas kids who are our future have the same opportunity that my daughter has right now. I thank you for your time and your support, and I am open to any questions.
Very good. Thank you, Jennifer. Committee, brief questions. Representative Reeves.
Thank you so much for your testimony. It's a beautiful story about your daughter, and this is what this program is for. And yes, absolutely, all children should have the opportunity to be able to receive services, no matter what their circumstance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing none, thank you very much for being here.
Thank you for your time.
Next, we have Jeff Andrews. Jeff, welcome to committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee, or members of the committee. My name is Jeff Andrews. I'm the superintendent of schools for the Catholic Diocese of Salina. It covers 26,000 square miles across north central and northwest Kansas. So in the east, we have Manhattan and Hanover, Catholic schools in those communities. And to the west, we've got Catholic schools in Oakley and Colby, and then in between. So there's 15 schools throughout there. I'm in my 5th year as superintendent of Catholic schools. My previous 15 years, I was in the public schools in Salina, everything from an elementary assistant principal to a high school basketball coach and social studies teacher to a middle school social studies teacher and a middle school principal. So I've almost done it all, public, private, all grade levels, and seen what mental health is like in the state of Kansas, how it's crippling our kids. So I'm here in strong support of House Bill 2236 because I've seen firsthand how access to mental health support changes lives in our communities. Our Catholic schools are more than just places of learning. They're places of refuge for students with anxiety, depression, and trauma. In our diocese, families often face overwhelming barriers to accessing mental health support, long distances, scheduling conflicts, everything that you've already heard here today. Many of our parents are farmers, ranchers, small business owners in our communities throughout the diocese and can't schedule these appointments to get there. I'm one of them. I have an 11-year-old son who has some anxiety, and getting him to appointments was tough. Even with what I thought were my connections as a superintendent of schools and a former coach and teacher in the community and all the networking I have, it was hard to get him scheduled to see somebody. So having mental health intervention team in our schools has been a lifesaver. Currently, 7 of our 15 Catholic schools participate in mental health intervention team program. We plan to expand next year. I don't know if I'll have all 15 on it, but probably at least 11 we'll have next year. Their turnaround on the grant application once they opened it to non-public schools was really quick. My office of Catholic schools is just me. That's it. Like, I don't have someone that does the grant, someone has someone else. So I've got to kind of prepare all that. So the turnaround was really quick, and being in multiple communities, you got to work with each mental health provider to do that. So it's really tough, but we've got 7 of the schools on it, and we'll hopefully get more involved next year. Through partnerships with High Plains Mental Health, you heard Craig earlier, we work with High Plains Mental Health in Rooks and Ellis County, and then Central Kansas Mental Health in Dickinson and Saline County. Tuesday? In the past 2 days, I've talked to people at Central Kansas Mental Health, High Plains Mental Health, and our 2 individual therapists that we work with that are private in town, all on MHIT stuff within the last few days. So I probably deal more with mental health than I do with academic growth at the schools when it comes to our students. So this bill bridges the gap for rural families. This bill can change lives and save lives. Just one thing, a parent that couldn't be here today, she lost her daughter was in my son's class. Her husband died in December. Our classroom rallied around this family, but because of MHIT, these 2 girls get help every single day that they need in our school. So I urge you to pass House Bill 2236 and continue investing in the mental well-being of our children. And thank you for your time on this critical issue. And I stand for any questions you may have.
Very good, Jeff. Thank you. Committee, Representative McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Andrews, I have a question that I think will be really good for you. There's been an attempt, a late attempt to take some mental health intervention team funds and provide an out-of-state vendor that will do like Zoom sort of telehealth. And I noticed that some of your schools are in a rural setting. How would that impact delivery for your school system? And do you have a position on whether you feel like the funds would be better spent the way we've been doing it, or are you open to this Zoom call type of telehealth?
Yeah, Representative McDonald, thank you so much for the question. I am 100% in favor of face-to-face, in-person therapy. Even in our rural communities, I will do everything I can to get a person in the seat next to our kids. We know what Zooms are like, whether you're remote working or whatever it is, or it's education, and I just don't think it can be, not that it won't work, I don't think it's as strong as putting one of our therapists in front of a kid and in front of their family.
Very good. Committee. Representative Steens.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much for your testimony today. I have a quick question. So do you have school counselors in most of your schools?
Not most of them, part of them. So Zoe and John in Salina. Zoe's at the grade school, John's at the junior senior high. TMP in Hayes has a school counselor. The grade school in Hayes has a school counselor. But most of our schools, especially our smaller rural ones, do not have school counselors. So, for instance, in Plainville, in Rooks County, we have Sacred Heart Grade School. The liaison for the program is our principal, who also might teach a class on some afternoons. You know, there's 44 kids in the school. So Sarah works with High Plains Mental Health to get services in the building on there.
Great. And then just a quick follow-up. The school liaisons, is that correct? Am I saying that correct, that term, that they're hiring for these? Have you had success in hiring the school liaisons?
We're not hiring them. We're just putting extra work towards people like Zoe and John to do that. And then bringing the therapist and, you know, Central Kansas Mental Health to the table to sit around and have the conversation is huge. And when I was in Salina Public Schools, we were one of the first public schools to use MHIS. So my office was right across the hall from the counselors, where a school liaison from Central Kansas came.
So it's fair to say, like, either of a school counselor, a teacher, anyone really is kind of making those, if you have a child like at risk then?
Yeah, they're kind of the front lines to how we're going to get the referral service going.
Thank you.
Committee, further questions? Seeing none, thank you very much for being here. Next, we have Lee Filter. Welcome to committee, Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I'm Leah Fleiter with KASB. As Mr. Finkeldye mentioned, it's good to be here together in support of this. Kansas Public Schools are very supportive of the MHIT program. We thank former Representative Brenda Landwehr for putting this into motion. She was a strong proponent of this, and so we give her a lot of credit for that. And we would applaud the program and ask you to make sure to codify the program to make sure that all Kansas kids are getting the mental health supports they need. And I can stand for questions.
Very good. Thank you for that. Committee questions. Representative McDonald, very brief, young lady.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have the same question for Leah as I had previously. Do you have a stance, or does KASB have a stance on telehealth versus in person?
We do not, but thank you for the question.
Further questions, committee? Seeing none, thank you very much, Lee. Next, we have Crystal. Welcome to committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee, for having me here today. My name is Crystal Hedrick. I'm CEO with the Children's Alliance of Kansas. The Alliance is an association of 18 private, nonprofit child welfare agencies. Our members include agencies that serve children referenced in this bill as children in need of care in the custody of the Secretary of DCF, or a recipient of Family First services or other prevention services like family preservation across the state. So thank you for the opportunity to be here in support of this bill. Over the last decade, families in Kansas have experienced fluctuations in their ability to access mental health services. From 2008 to 2010, the state reduced mental health funding by $19 million. In 2016, a 4% reduction in Medicaid spending had a significant loss for our community mental health centers as well. Just a month ago, the U.S. Department of Health and Services published an article regarding parents across the country who are relinquishing their parental rights in hopes of their child receiving adequate mental and behavioral health services through foster care. In my former role, one of my jobs was to support families that had adopted from foster care in Kansas. And I've worked face-to-face, one-on-one with many families who are simply fearful that they can't keep their families safe due to the significant mental health needs of their children in their home. In a 2-year time span from February of 2017 to February of 2019, more than 25,000 children across our country have entered foster care specifically for this reason. Foster care is designed to support kids who are victims of abuse and neglect, but it should not be a pathway to services for children and youth who need timely and consistent mental health care. In 2018, a class action lawsuit was filed against the state of Kansas on behalf of children in foster care. We reached a settlement in 2020 where we have allocated a lot of resources financially to work our way through that. The third and most recent audit done in September of 2024 revealed that only 52% of kids in foster care received timely mental health services. Following the pandemic, 9 states have enacted laws mandating focus on integrating education about the importance of mental health and well-being and providing direct services to families and kids within and beyond the educational environment. Integrating these mental health services within schools has been a pivotal strategy to support student well-being and academic success. We, the Children's Alliance, would just ask that you support this bill to formalize the structure of the already existing program and ensure sustained support as we continue to support families across the state. Happy to stand for questions.
Very good. Thank you for that. Committee, a few brief questions. Seeing none, thank you very much for being here. Next, we have Tim Graham. Tim, welcome to committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Tim Graham. I'm here representing the Kansas National Education Association. We are the teachers union here in Kansas. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in favor of HB 2236. KNEA has been a vocal advocate for health, safety, and well-being of students. We strongly believe that a healthy school environment positively impacts children's social, emotional, cognitive, and physical development. When I took this bill to our lobby team, if you will, which is our management, our governance, and those that represent our members, they cited the fact that we have several resolutions on mental health in our policy book. I also gave them the narrative of where the history of this program and how it's seen kind of a tough road from time to time. And I asked her, I said, do you want us to testify in favor of this bill? And her response was, quickly, was, why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we? And so I said, simple enough. That was my recommendation, but I wanted to make sure that I would have the backing of everybody at the association, and I do. So that's why I'm here. I want to say, just on a personal note, and then I'll finish. I've heard folks in the audience talk about how anxiety can be crippling, and I think everybody in this room probably believes that. But until you've experienced it, you really don't know what it means. It is terrible to be locked up. And, it's one thing to deal with that as an individual. I can't imagine if I was the parent of a child that was dealing with, the story that we heard earlier, and not knowing how you're going to get that help. And I understand the other stories about busy families and the frequency, as one gentleman mentioned it, and how important this is to the frequency. This bill is also important to the funding and to the ability of this bill to take shape, or this program to continue to take shape and expand. So the other thing I would say is, if you talk to teachers, there's a tremendous amount of behavioral situations in the classroom. And I got 30 seconds. If you would think that if you were to ask me right now, what's the main concern of teachers, a lot of you might think it's pay, and that's a big deal. But I will tell you that overwhelmingly they come to us and they talk about the behavioral issues in the classroom. Mental health is a big issue and is a very big contributing factor on those classroom situations. So we really ask you guys to support this. Thank you, Chairman.
Very good. Thank you, Tim. Committee, a couple of brief questions. Seeing none. Thank you again, Tim. Okay, we'll close the hearing on House Bill 2236. We will begin working. Let's just start with House Bill 2217. Carly? I can. Okay, well, we've seen this. It was the Medicaid Inspector General. I mistakenly pulled it off. It was below the line, and I pulled it back because I thought it might be Medicaid amendable, and here we are again. Same bill, nothing done. Just need to pass it out again. Questions? Seeing none, I would entertain a motion to pass this bill out. Representative Bueller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I make a motion that we pass out House Bill, forget the number.
2217.
2217 favorably.
Do I have a second? A second by Representative Blex. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
No.
Would you like your votes recorded too? Okay. So McDonald, Orpeza, Ruiz, Meyer, and Weichel. Very good. Bill is passed. Okay, we will now work Senate Bill 82. Would you give us a brief description of that? We just heard it yesterday, but.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is Senate Bill 82 is the concerning rural emergency hospitals. It is the swing beds bill.
Very good. Committee, are there amendments? Representative Bryce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have an amendment that's fairly just a technical amendment that changes the publication from the statute book to the Kansas Register.
Do I have a second on the amendment? Second by Representative Ellis. Discussion on the amendment? You can.
Thank you. Yeah.
While we're passing out the amendment, Representative Ruiz.
Does this amendment match what we already passed in 2249?
Carly.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, Representative. Could you repeat that for me?
Yes. Does this amendment match what we've done for HB 2249? It's the same bill, but just, it was the House version.
No, this would make it different than the House version. The House version would pending any action taken in the Senate as it stands its statute book in the House version.
Oh, okay.
Committee further discussion. Representative McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just curious about the reason for this, if I'm allowed to ask. What's the thought process?
It needs to be different than the Senate bill. Okay. That's the thought process. Committee further discussion on the amendment. I would entertain a motion to approve the bill as amended.
Mr. Chairman, I move my amendment.
Okay. Second by Representative Steens. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. No. Would you like your votes recorded? I don't. Okay. Motion passes. Next, we will take up Senate Bill. Okay, so we passed amended. So do I have a motion for the amended bill? Representative Berquist. Droege seconds the amended bill. All in favor of the amended bill, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign? No. Would you like your votes recorded? No? Okay. Motion bill passes. Okay, now, Senate Bill 193. We're going to work that. Carly, if you remember, we worked that yesterday. And that was the bill. Go ahead, Carly.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senate Bill 193 is the emergency opioid antagonist bill that we've heard before in the House as well.
Committee discussion, questions of Carly? Seeing none, are there any amendments? Representative Bryce.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a similar amendment for Senate Bill 193, changing the statute book to Kansas Register.
Very good. Will you pass out the amendment? Do I have a second on the amendment? Representative Blex seconds the amendment. Carly, would you like to explain the amendment?
Mr. Chair, at the very end of the bill, on page 4 in line 2, striking statute book and inserting Kansas Register.
Thank you for that. Committee discussion on the amendment. Seeing none, all in favor of the, we had a motion and a second.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move my amendment.
All in favor of the amendment, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
No.
Would you like your votes recorded? No. Amendment passes. Now a motion for the amended bill. Representative Berquist. Do I have a second? Representative Blex. Discussion on the amended bill. Seeing none. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign.
No.
Would you like your votes recorded? Bill passes. Okay, thank you, committee, for your indulgence and your hard work here today. This is kind of how this week is going to go. We need to get our work done this week so that we can have some time next week to do other things. So thank you for your deal, and we're adjourned.